Good afternoon, everybody. Today I'm chatting with Simon Quick from Canadian Copper. Guys, I'm really excited to have Simon on because Canadian Copper just announced that they're acquiring a mill, the Caribou Processing Plant Complex, for approximately $6.2 million. The way that gets financed is yet to be determined. But the last time I interviewed Simon, he was really coy about it and he made it sound like, oh, it'd probably be some sort of joint venture. It won't be us acquiring it. And then presto, I got that news release this week and I couldn't believe my eyes. Simon actually went and he did it. And I think that if you are looking for mining companies that have a solid asset in the ground, that are looking to get to production at relatively minor values, we're talking a nano cap here, a company with a sub $20 million market cap. This is quickly becoming a pretty interesting story, especially if you like copper. So guys, please enjoy this interview. And this is a name you just may want to put on your watch list. Simon, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having us.
So I'm excited to talk to you because the last time we talked about this little mill or mining complex that you were being pretty coy at the time, I have to say, making it sound like you weren't going to go and try to swallow the big fish. And here we are. You guys just announced that you guys are acquiring the Caribou complex. Simon, break it down for us, for people who are looking at this tiny little copper mining stock out of New Brunswick. What does this transaction mean?
Well, I think it's important. We're a little fish and we took a nibble at just a bit bigger of a fish. It's certainly not a big mill, 3,000 tons per day. It's fully permitted and constructed. And we're excited because the acquisition or the proposed acquisition of the Caribou complex really matches our strategy of having a fully designed and drilled off large polymetallic resource. And now we control its destiny by having a fully permitted built plant that we can then process from.
Now, the transaction, it says that I think it was 6.2 million that you guys are acquiring it for.
Yes.
Now, you guys have a market cap of, I don't know at the time of recording, like mid-teens, I think like 13, 14 million or something like that. So how are you guys going to be able to finance this transaction?
Yeah, so to try and replicate what we purchased, it's around $70,000 per ton processed. That gives us the as-built cost is between 100 to 300 million, and we paid just under 6.3 million for the acquisition. So we think we got obviously a very good price for it. In terms of how we intend to finance, the structure has a very long close, so we don't have to come up with any of the funds until July 11th, 2025. And the idea is we will build out the business case and then issue a PEA in the first half of next year that we think will show very compelling economics. And the idea of that delayed raise is to really lower the cost of capital and try and minimize equity dilution for the current shareholders that frankly have been very loyal for the last couple of years as we finish building out this strategy of controlling the mine to mill on the combined facility.
So what has to happen with the mill to get it to the point where it could be production ready again?
So we were there a couple of weeks ago with our engineers, both structural, mechanical, and some of the metallurgical group to really identify any key red flags, none of which were found. And I think a lot of the reason is this mill went into care and maintenance shutdown in August of 2022 by Trevally. And since then, the government has kept it control on care and maintenance. The building heat is on, the pumps are turning, they're keeping up with environmental compliance. So there really isn't a lot of restart capital that is going to go into this other than optimization that we intend to include in the PEA.
Now, I don't know if you can answer this, but do you have any sort of sense of, you guys are paying $6.2 million for this mill. Do you guys have any sense of how expensive it would be to build a mill like this from scratch?
Yeah, so again, no one project is the same, but if you look at Valentine out in Newfoundland, mind you, it's a gold plant. So it's 10,000 tons per day, and the plant cost itself was around $750 million. So you start to work backwards. And then if you put that towards Caribou, that gives you around a $200 million replacement value if we were to build it tomorrow. But what's important to think about is not just the CapEx. That would require a federal permit and a lot of sequential steps in order to achieve that. So I think the money piece is important, but also the ability to execute on a federally permitted project is very challenging in Canada right now.
So I guess I'm saying it, but you're not, but effectively you're saying that you guys may have just unlocked massive, massive shareholder value here with this acquisition, something that would have been massively dilutive to go and do on your own. You guys have pulled this off.
Yeah, I think a better way to phrase it is the junior exploration or the junior developer has a challenge because the market cap versus the capex of the projects they have are always 100 times. So you're a 10 million market cap company, you have an excellent, for example, copper project, but you need $1 billion in capital to build it. And they can never make that math work. But in this circumstance, we may have a capex that's 10 times our market cap. And you start to realize that that is digestible and it's financeable without having to do a really onerous equity issuance or partner with maybe people on terms that you don't think are equitable for your shareholders.
Okay. So one of the things, and I don't know if you can really give us a ton of guidance here. Maybe guidance isn't the right word, but any sort of a ballpark number or idea. I'm sure you guys have an idea when you're entering this of when you guys could get back to production. Do you guys have any kind of goals, or ideally when you guys would be starting to produce some copper?
Yeah, so in terms of our modeling, we obviously didn't go into this without completing a pretty rigorous internal conceptual model to justify the capital and the acquisition. Um, but based on our analysis, this is only going to be a provincial only permit, not going to have a federal trigger. And the reason is two. One, it's mining less than 5,000 tons per day, and we're not building a tailings impoundment because we purchased that with the Caribou complex. So we expect from the word go, which is funded for development, and we start our permitting process, we would be in production in less than 48 months.
Okay.
So if you
Um,
look across, just to finish that, if you look across the base metal space in Canada in terms of the junior developers and even a larger mid-tier developer, I don't see too many comparables that could have their asset online in that kind of time frame, especially in the permitting strategy that we're using, i.e., avoiding a federal trigger, which again just streamlines that construction process.
Okay. And now, would there be any opportunities to work with third parties that have some material for production, or are you guys laser focused on your deposit?
Yeah, so we look at that as the next phase of growth after Murray Brook has been extinguished. So again, a bit of history. The Caribou plant right now has two flotation trains, a zinc and a lead circuit, and the former operator bought all of the copper flotation circuitry necessary to produce copper concentrate there, but never finished it. So we look at it as if in our PEA we'll finish up the copper circuit, and that opens up so many more orphaned deposits across New Brunswick that have much more copper ore, and we'll be able to then toll mill and just continue to add to the mine life of this complex.
Okay, so Simon, I'm at all sorts of conferences as you can imagine. I'm chatting with some pretty big guys that I get access to because, of course, I'm small cap Steve. But whenever I
You're
talk to
big
them
fish,
about,
Steve, to us.
yeah, I'm big fish Steve. I've been called some other things, but we won't get into that. Um, and when I chat with some of these guys, I got to say, smart guys too. They, the copper talk seems to be pretty consistent among them. I'm sure you're chatting with some pretty wealthy investors, bright people that are eyeing you guys as something that's could be an attractive investment. Tell me what you're seeing in the copper market and why we should be excited about it.
Yeah, I think copper and all of the other related critical mineral commodities, certainly medium long term, look quite strong. It's really challenging to forecast, I would say, month by month and even 6 months forward. But on the demand supply side, demand is going to continue to rise, whether it's wind farms, solar power, AI. All of these things are just at their infancy stage, and they're going to continue to incrementally need more metals. And conversely, if you just look globally at supply, I don't even think in the conservative case they're going to be able to incrementally quell that supply. Mines are harder to build, more complicated, capex is rising, and jurisdictional risk, particularly as we head into this election and just the global economy, continues to be challenging. So, would you want to invest, call it $1 billion and maybe a 10-year payback into a country you weren't really quite sure how it would last?
I say, especially in this political environment where the world order seems to be at risk here. Okay, so let's wrap it up with Canadian copper. if I'm an investor or I saw the news release and I go, this is really exciting. They're doing something real here. What am I watching out for over the next year? What are those next steps that I should be watching for?
Yeah, I think what's important is in our press release announcement, we outlaid a series of activities that have hard deadline deliverables attached to them to show how we're moving this transaction forward. So the next couple of weeks, we will start with our updated metallurgical test program, and really that is to refine the Murray Brook ore body and its response to the constructed as-built Caribou plant. We'll then move forward through a financial model, and we'll actually publish a new PEA in the first half of 2025. And we think the economics attached to that PEA will be used to fund the capital required to close the purchase of the acquisition we announced, which is due July 11th, 2025.
Well, Simon, thanks very much for hopping on here. Congratulations on the transaction. As somebody who's been investing in small caps for over a decade, I love when I see news like this. You see so many of these junior mining companies, and they're basically just a piece of real estate thrown into a publicly traded vehicle. And then, they go and try to raise some money, and like a very small portion of that actually goes into the ground. The rest of it goes into who knows where. And it's clear that you are laser focused. You're probably one of the only guys that I've chatted with in my years since doing interviews in Canadian small caps who actually understates what his real goals are and overperforms. So I hope that this is a trend with you. And even when you say 48 months, that that you're sitting back there and internally being a little bit more hopeful or aggressive. And I appreciate you hopping on here, and let's continue to chat as you guys roll out on your strategy.
No, thanks so much. And one final point I think it's important is the market did reward us for an acquisition that traditionally you sell off on because they know that it has to be funded. So I think people now understand that the acquisition on a consolidated basis was accretive, and our shares were up almost 50% on the day of. And I think that adds validity to the transaction, that it was good for current and I think future shareholders.
Thanks for doing this, Simon.
Alrighty, bye-bye.
All right, everybody. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this interview, please smash that like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Also, let me know what you think in the comment section. Thanks, everyone.